Tonight, as President-elect Trump announces his cabinet nominees, questions rise about whether some will make it past the Senate.
Matt Gaetz is a firebrand conservative loyalist. Donald Trump has few defenders in Congress as reliable as Gaetz.
Reaction from lawmakers at the U.S. Capitol. Plus,
we need to maintain stability, clarity, predictability through this transition between the United States and China.
President Biden's final meeting with his Chinese counterpart ahead of Donald Trump's return to the White House. And training Middle Eastern teens to become terrorists, why some say the United Nations is at fault. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
The president-elect's latest picks for key administration roles, raising some questions and concerns. Good evening, I'm Jenna Browder.
From the CBN studio in the nation's capital, I'm John Jessup. Well, the selection of Matt Gaetz as the next U.S. Attorney General specifically is sending shockwaves across Washington.
And tonight, congressional leaders, the DOJ, and even some members in the Christian community are voicing skepticism. The CBN Capitol Hill correspondent Michelle London has our top story. Michelle?
Well, John, Jenna, members of the Senate Judiciary Committee hold the power to confirm or deny Gaetz' appointment as Attorney General. While Republicans will soon be in the majority, some are criticizing the choice, saying the former Florida congressman lacks both the experience and moral compass to lead the Justice Department.
I don't think it's a serious nomination for the Attorney General. We need to have a serious Attorney General, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to consider somebody that is serious. This one was not on my bingo card.
I just think it's silly. I believe that the president is probably rewarding him for being such a loyal soldier to the president.
House member Max Miller adding the staunch Trump defender has never been a team player nor helped out their conference. For now, an ethics investigation into Gaetz' conduct has ended because he resigned his House seat on Wednesday, the same day of his nomination. Tonight, Senator Dick Durbin is joining Republican and Democratic senators urging the House Ethics Committee to share its report on Gaetz. The DOJ had also been investigating him for alleged sex trafficking and obstruction, but declined to bring charges. Gaetz has denied all allegations, but that hasn't stopped questions about his fitness to serve as Attorney General. I spoke today with Matt Staver, founder of the Liberty Council, regarding this pick, who says America deserves better.
That's really, frankly, a surprise to me and many people, especially those of us who have followed the career of Matt Gaetz. It has been riddled with scandals, and it's very serious allegations that have been confirmed by a number of reports, but also eyewitnesses and text messages, including cell phone tracking data that put him at places where there were sex parties with underage girls. There were witnesses that saw him taking illegal drugs. That has been part of the Matt Gaetz history for some time.
And again, the former representative denies all of those allegations. Still, many key leaders in Washington, including former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, says Gaetz' chances of getting enough support to be confirmed as the next AG are slim to none. John, Jenna.
All right, Capitol Hill correspondent Michelle London, thank you. And for more, we are joined by Mark Caleb Smith, director of the Center for Political Studies at Cedarville University. Dr. Smith, welcome. So that's really the question. Can Gaetz be confirmed? It comes down to simple math. How many votes can Gaetz afford to lose, especially if Marco Rubio's replacement isn't sworn in by the time the Senate holds confirmation votes?
Yeah, I think we're looking at 3 votes maximum. He could probably lose, depending on what happens with everything else. But yeah, I think there's a significant portion of the Republican caucus in the Senate that's very suspicious of Matt Gaetz's nomination. However, Donald Trump remains intensely popular within the Republican Party. And you can be sure that if Donald Trump really wants him, he's going to twist a lot of arms to try to make it happen. Doesn't mean it will necessarily, but there's going to be a lot of pressure put on those folks if Trump wants to pursue it.
I imagine a lot of those Senate offices will be receiving phone calls from Trump supporters. Mark, the timing of the announcement and Gaetz's resignation seems to suggest it was done to avoid the House Ethics Committee report possibly going public. Is there any precedent, Mark, or appetite to compel the release of that report regardless?
I'm sure there's an appetite. You know, I have no doubt that there would be senators probably on both sides of the aisle who'd like to see that report. But there's really, at least in what I've been able to find out, no precedent for the Senate or the House being able to compel a report from the other chamber. The Constitution structures those two chambers as equal for the most part, and it really doesn't put either of them in a position to demand something out of another chamber. And so they could work together if they chose to. There are different mechanisms for them to working together. But I don't think that's going to happen in a case like this. And so unless the committee desires to turn over the document, my guess is going to stay where it is.
So there are new reports tonight, Mark, that Trump will nominate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as the Secretary of Health and Human Services. There were thoughts that he would get some sort of appointment, but not necessarily a cabinet position. Do you think he also could be confirmed? Of course, you know, he's probably made quite a few enemies in the Democratic Party, and there are probably quite a few Republicans who won't vote for him either.
Yeah, I think it's a very I would say inflammatory selection. Kennedy has a history of being opposed to vaccines, and I think that would become a significant point of discussion for someone who's been nominated to Health and Human Services Secretary. And there would probably be some support, but I think there would be a tremendous amount of opposition. And so it's still not clear to me necessarily what incoming President Trump is really trying to accomplish here. Is he really trying to get these folks confirmed? Or is he thinking they're going to get bounced, and this is just his way to show his loyalty to them, and then you sort of nominate someone else when that happens? And so, you know, I'm not sure what's going to take place. And of course, he's also pressuring the senators to maybe go out of session so that he can appoint some of these folks in the recess clause in the Constitution. And so there's still a lot of moving parts here, and I think the President Trump's power is about to be tested pretty significantly.
We're all waiting with captivated eyes. Dr. Mark Caleb Smith with Cedarville University, thank you so much for your time and your insights tonight.
President Biden is preparing to meet with China's Xi Jinping for the last time. The two leaders will hold talks on the sidelines of an international summit this Saturday in Peru. Their conversation taking place as a second Trump administration forms and looks ahead to future relations.
If you look out at a strategic level, the competition with the People's Republic of China is going to be defining for what the world looks like over the course of the next 10, 20, and 30 years. And so that has got to be a paramount priority for the incoming administration. And the person who's been named as my successor, the person who's been floated as the Secretary of State, these are people who have very much focused on that challenge.
President-elect Trump could take a more hardline approach with China and has already threatened major tariffs.
Well, joining us now is Patrick Cronin, Asia-Pacific Security Chair at Hudson Institute. Patrick, welcome to you. So you just heard Jake Sullivan there talking about China as a defining geopolitical issue, perhaps also an economic issue. What do you expect from a second Trump administration concerning China?
Well, I think the Trump-Xi relationship could be the most profound relationship for both prosperity and security over the next 4 years that could have implications for the next 2 or 3 decades, as Jake Sullivan was suggesting. I'm assuming that Trump 2.0 will pick up where Trump 1.0 left off, which was trying to both use tariffs to get more economic leverage over China, at the same time trying to make deals with China. The deal that was made at the end of the Trump administration's first term was never really consummated, in the sense that the Chinese never really bought more goods as they had promised to do. I assume we're going to have a very intensified competition going into 2025. So what's going to stand out from this summit meeting on the margins of the G20 meeting in Peru is this sort of floor that the Biden administration has been able to negotiate under U.S.-China relations here finally in 2024 is going to be rocked and disrupted in 2025. But that's supposed to be en route probably for a Trump 2.0 administration towards some new, if not grand bargain, at least bigger deal.
When President Obama was handing over the reins to Trump back in 2016, he said that North Korea posed the greatest threat to the United States. This administration has told Trump it's now China. Do you agree with that, Patrick?
Well, I do. You know, and just in the context of 2016, when Obama was handing this off to President-elect Trump, I think the Obama administration knew that we were about to see an ICBM test in the next year from North Korea, and we did see that. So it was a major test back in 2017 to deal with a new ICBM threat from North Korea. But China is the big challenger here. This has been agreed to. Indeed, Trump 1.0 changed the terms of reference of U.S. foreign policy to think about the resurgence of major power relations and competition. Biden continued that, and I think Trump will pick up on this as well.
And, you know, senior White House officials have described this meeting between both men as a moment of reflection concerning the relationship that really goes back many, many years. What do you think is President Xi is thinking as he has what likely will be his last meeting with President Biden, and as President-elect Trump gets ready to lead the United States again?
Well, I don't think Xi Jinping is going to make any concessions to a lame duck president. He knows he's going to have some very tough negotiations with the incoming Trump administration, but he will reflect on the fact that he and President Biden, especially last year at the Woodland Summit on the margins of last year's APEC meeting, that he was able to put a floor under the relationship and have a modicum of stability, including resuming the military-to-military discussions. Those are now more or less frozen, though, I think, until Trump comes into office in January.
How do you think the rest of the world, Patrick, is viewing all of this right now? And are other world leaders happy about another Trump term, or does this create some uncertainty for them?
Oh, it magnifies the uncertainty for sure. And indeed, that's part of the leverage that I think President Trump wants to bring into the negotiations with China. But in particular, it's the tariff war and the trade war. Robert Lighthizer, the former representative for U.S. Trade in Trump 1.0, has already been named as potential trade czar and a tariff czar in effect, because Trump says he's the tariff man. And 60% tariffs on China will take a real bite out of the Chinese economy.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, Patrick Cronin with the Hudson Institute, thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Thanks, Patrick. Coming up, inflation in America, the latest on the U.S. economy and how it could look under Trump 2.0. Welcome back. In economic news, household debt in America is on the rise. New data from the New York Federal Reserve shows such debt ticked up in the third quarter, now totaling $18 trillion nationally. Well, that sounds like an astonishing figure, and it is. There is a silver lining. Incomes are also on the rise. According to the New York Fed, while debt has increased 4% annually, household incomes have also increased by about 6.2%.
Here now for more, Joel Griffith, an economist with the Heritage Foundation. Joel, welcome. So as the Biden administration begins to come to an end here, how is the economy as a whole?
Well, we're in rough shape on many levels. We know that jobs growth has pretty much stagnated over the last few months. In fact, we've lost over 1 million full-time jobs over the past year. And we had inflation data that came out this month that actually shows the inflation rate is now on the uptick again. We have two primary measures of that. The core producer price index, which measures how much businesses are paying. That's rising at more than a 3% annual clip. And the rate that we're paying as consumers, that's rising at a 2.6% annual rate, dramatic, substantially above what the Federal Reserve has made as its target. So with President Trump coming back into office in January, we have some important economic problems to solve.
You know, a lot of voters went to the polls last week with the economy weighing heavy on their minds. In what ways do you think the incoming Trump administration will change the economic outlook, specifically, too, as it relates to tariffs and how that might affect people's pocketbooks?
Well, tariffs are taxes, and the president-elect has suggested he wants to impose universal tariffs that would be applied on all products coming across the border. If those plans went into effect, that could cost families upwards of $2,500 per year. And remember, American families have been dealing with new tariffs going back to the prior Trump administration. President Biden kept those tariffs in place, and that's added several $100s per year to the annual family costs of living. So this is an important issue to discuss. On the plus side, President Trump has promised to reduce regulations on businesses. That would allow businesses to operate more efficiently, allowing all of us to be more productive. And that would be a benefit to American families. And if you look back at how President Trump worked in the prior administration, he indeed did cut regulations substantially and allowed our economy to boom.
How how quickly do you think, Trump wants to extend his 2017 tax cuts? How quickly do you think he'll be able to do that, and we'll see the ripple effects throughout the economy?
Well, as you know, Republicans have control of the Senate now and the House of Representatives, and there is a big appetite to extend those tax cuts. The tax cuts that former President Trump signed into law helped people on every income level, and it made our businesses more competitive. If those tax cuts expire, this is going to be another dramatic cost of living increase to American families, and probably most importantly, this is going to saddle businesses, large and small, with a dramatic increase in their tax bill. So I think it's very important that Congress permanently extend those tax cuts.
All right, Joel Griffith of the Heritage Foundation. Joel, thank you.
Thank you.
Reading, writing, and rocket attacks. Palestinian students are being trained in terror at the hands of a group meant to bring aid. Which agency is behind the horror? That story and more next. Welcome back. Israel is carrying out strikes across Lebanon as it continues its campaign against Hezbollah. This is the Iranian-backed terror group fired volleys of rockets into northern Israel today. There were no reported deaths or injuries. The IDF is vowing to continue the fight against Hezbollah until Israelis can safely return to their homes on the Lebanese border.
We will not have any ceasefire. We will not stop, and we will not take our foot off the gas.
Israel also carried out airstrikes across the border in Syria. The IDF says it hit infrastructure and command centers belonging to Palestinian territories. Syrian state media reports the strikes killed at least 15 people.
The birthplace of Jesus sits just about 5 miles from Jerusalem, and in such close proximity, a new film warns Hamas's next target just might be the little town of Bethlehem.
While that might be surprising for some, even more shockingly, the film claims a United Nations agency is helping to set the stage for the attack. Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl reports.
When Israel entered Gaza after October 7th, soldiers found evidence that Hamas had used UNRWA facilities for training and weapons storage, with a number of UN workers working with the group.
Hamas's relationship with UNRWA is good, very good. We assist UNRWA, and Hamas cooperates with UNRWA on many levels.
For years, CBN News has reported how Hamas uses UN schools and summer camps in Gaza to indoctrinate thousands of children. They're taught to hate and even kill Jews while learning Israel is an illegitimate state that should be destroyed.
You're the generation that is being trained to fight. Although you are young, you're being trained for holy war.
Now a new film by the Nachum Bedin Center for Near East Policy Research shows how this education of hate is being spread to young students in Judea and Samaria, also known as the West Bank.
David, tell us about your new film.
The new movie, UNRWA at War, will show how UNRWA instigated the war from day one, show how UNRWA is preparing a new war in the area of Bethlehem, in the 4 UNRWA refugee camps in Bethlehem.
What would a war coming from Bethlehem look like?
It would spill out into Beit Shemesh, into Efrat, into Jerusalem, and with similar atrocities. Because from their point of view, the end justifies the means. And they've been educated since August 1st, 2000 in the new school system to believe that they have a right to take back any land lost in 48 by force of arms.
Bethlehem is only about 5 miles from Jerusalem. Bedin's crew interviewed children and teenagers in 4 nearby UNRWA refugee camps and asked, can Jerusalem be divided between Palestinians and Jews?
No, we won't agree to it. It's impossible. Jerusalem is ours, and we won't give up Jerusalem. We will give our souls for Al-Aqsa if Jews will take it. Israel will not withdraw from our land. We have to fight for it. We have to fight in order to free Palestine, and with Allah's help, we will have our land. What is the solution to Jerusalem? To kill the Jews. We'll get rid of the Jews. My only desire is to become a martyr.
There will never be peace between the Palestinian and the Zionist state. I desire a martyr's death so I can become a role model for the next generation who seek to give their soul to Palestine.
Interesting also that it's Bethlehem, which has a real strong biblical connection.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and this is the whole point.
Yeah.
That Bethlehem is recognized around the world But when we conducted one of our short films shows the children there wanting all to go, they think that they all should live in Malcha, which is now a thriving neighborhood in Jerusalem. And they think they're going back there, and they think they're going to take their people's homes and kill everybody there. Again, the difference between this and a regular terrorist organization is that this is not encouraging hatred, this is encouraging murder.
How can it be stopped?
You have a law enforcement system, and anyone who's involved with terror gets arrested and stopped. It's not a rocket scientist. This can happen. But if there's a will, there's a way. And trying to have easy solutions, there's at least 12 prominent personalities around the world, so just get rid of UNRWA. Well, I'd like to be the king of Siam also. You can't do everything, or as a great rabbi once said, you can't always get what you want. Well, think of who said that. But you can't always get what you want. You can't just get rid of it. What you can do is you can introduce policy initiatives that will change the situation.
Bedin says it's important to introduce policies that will change policies if you want the situation to improve. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Still ahead, an unlikely spot for New Yorkers to find comfort and community. Faith Nation returns after this.
Download the CBN News app. One place for all of your news. Breaking news alerts. Watch CBN News Channel live. CBN News, because truth matters. Get the CBN News app today.
Finally tonight, New York City commuters are finding an unusual outlet for their thoughts and feelings. The walls of a subway station.
The art project that's become known as subway therapy. The tunnel walls connecting 6th and 7th Avenues are covered in thousands of Post-it notes, as you can see there, each one containing subway riders' thoughts, fears, or doodles. The project was created by Matthew Chavez, an artist who wants to give people an easy way to get things off their chest. He keeps a notebook of Post-it notes he finds most interesting and hopes to expand the art project to other cities. I think that's a great idea, and better than, like, don't forget to take out the trash Post-it notes.
Yeah, yeah. I also like that they're using colors and not just that yellow, the yellow one.
Keeping it artistic.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching.
Have a great night.
Yeah, the yellow